My name is Kelly Kolodny, and I've been channeling the angel Raphael since I was a college student, a senior in college. I was under a type of chiropractic care called network chiropractic by a man named Donnie Epstein and Arnaud Bernier, very well-known chiropractors, and they were working on me and many of my family members. And during that process, I had a Kundalini awakening by a very gentle touch to the meninge in my spine. And what that felt like was a surge of energy would come just sort of up and through me, and my hands would kind of go back like in a surrendering position, and I would start to tone and make sounds. And at the time, the energy was so intense, it would almost like knock you over. It was really wild. And, it happened to, so I have four sisters, and three of us had this similar experience. One of them wasn't up for it. It was like, I don't want any part of that, and kind of shut it down. My other sister opened up to it, and it came through her actually first. And then I was living with her, and I was recording all the information like on little old tape recorders, and it said it was the angel Raphael. And the energy was just so sweet and beautiful, and sometimes even like poetic and insightful. And I remember one day my sister Marielle went out to the grocery store, and I was home living with her right out of school. I had like no money, and I was just staying there to get myself oriented. And I was watching her daughter, and Raphael wanted to finish what she was saying, or he, how we think of Raphael, and Marielle wasn't there. So Raphael just came through me. And that's when I began to channel. And that was in 1989. And it was during the harmonic convergence. A lot of big spiritual awakening was happening during that time. It's a very powerful time on the planet. And I know a lot of people across the planet began, there was a big wake up that was happening then, just like we have a huge wake up happening right now. And, back then I would tell people, or I didn't tell people actually that I channeled. They'd look at you cross eyed like, wow, you have really lost your marbles. But today people are definitely ready and more open, and there is a big shift in consciousness. And, it's a beautiful thing. So when I channel, I close my eyes. I can channel with my eyes open, but it's a little weird and uncomfortable for me. I rock back and forth. That just happens automatically. Not much I can do about that. My hands move, and when my hands are moving, that is Raphael blessing you guys and connecting to your energy field. And you're getting a vibrational and energetic healing and update by Raphael simply by participating and being on the calls. That alone in itself is a beautiful thing. So today we had asked people on Instagram if they had questions for Raphael, and people wrote in things, and I copied and pasted them and sent them over to Casey, so he'll pick out some of those, and we'll see what comes up. All right, sounds good. All right, here we go. So, everybody just want to take a nice deep breath and let go, and just let all the energy of the week or the weekend fall away, and kind of feel yourself just dropping down into the earth and grounding. We're going to call in Archangel Michael as well today, just to bring in that beautiful protective blue light around all of us. And just so you know, I do practices like that before these calls. So we are in the greatest hand of the most divine beings of love. All right. Okay.
Hello.
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 Sorry, guys. I have to start over. I can't hear
Can you
Casey.
hear me?
My volume's down, sweetheart. One moment. Okay,
Can you hear me now?
I can. Hello,
Hello.
hello, hello,
Hello.
hello, hello,
Hello.
hello. It is, as always, we are delighted to be here with all of you and to bring in our messages and to remind you of who it is that you are before it is that you are here in this body, and to also remind you that we love and adore who it is that you are, and that if perhaps you are having a hard time right now, or you are feeling alone, or you're not well, and that this too shall pass, and that we are here and present for you in the willingness to open up and to receive our blessings and love. For there's a lot happening on a deep and energetic level right now across your globe. And of course, this is always happening, but it comes in ebbs and flows and highs and lows. And right now, the vibration is, in a sense, still. It is a bit quiet, as if the wave has come down and it is settled. However, it is going to resurface quickly and very loudly as a new wave of energy that is has a great intensity and force, and at the same time opportunity for opening and allowing and seeing and growing is about to arrive. And you are experiencing this yourself, or some of you are experiencing the ride as if the wave is here right now and everything for you is up real much. But it is that from an astrological perspective, on a global perspective, as the new moon is beginning the full moon is beginning to come forward. You are at a point right now in the second half of this energy during this month will begin to accelerate. Everything will be accentuated, will be accelerated, will be louder, will be bigger, and some of it will be bringing forth a lot of energy and propelling things in which you have put into place so that they can actualize themselves, and others will be propelling and bringing in energies that will be surfacing to be seen, to be cleared, to be observed, to be looked at. And so we're wanting, in a sense, in which we very rarely do. As you know, we don't talk about predictions, for we are not in that business of predicting, because there is free will and there are many timelines that can unfold at any given moment. But there is a surge of energy on arising and on its way. And sometimes a little bit of a heads up can support you in keeping your equilibrium, keeping you grounded and your footing, so that you remember that the compass of your centeredness dwells within, and that there is nothing outside of yourself or external that can make you better or to feel at ease or at peace, but your internal knowing and internal silence and willingness to be present is what will be needed. So we're just wanting to remind you of all that. And it is not anything whatsoever to be afraid of, or this is not fear based in any way. It is just a reminder of the surge of energy coming with beautiful opportunities and openings. And it is coming in quite quickly. And so, with that, what is it you are wanting to talk about?
Hi, Raphael. Thank you so much. That your opening kind of answered the first question that I was going to ask about somebody who is feeling like their past is over, their future is unknown, and they don't have any intuition, ideas, dreams, or motivation to move them forward. They don't see any opportunities, and they're wondering if this is just going to resolve themselves or that they should be doing something to be unstuck from this.
Well, when you are in that place of stillness, and sometimes it might feel like eternity in between energy or activity that is unfolding in form that you can see or is tangible, it can seem like a long time, and a wondering as you are trusting in the universe how and when it will present itself. And although it is of great importance to take time when those times present themselves and to be at peace with sometimes that inactivity and actually doing nothing is actually doing the greatest and the most thing that you can do. But if there is an impatience around that, and it has been for a period of time, and there's a wondering, it is also very supportive and helpful to be of service, and to get outside of oneself, and to get the generating flow or movement going by doing something for another in a way of volunteering or helping those who do not have food or shelter, or going and giving soup out, or whatever it may be, to simply get outside of your own self in the waiting period so that the energy begins to flow and move, and then it begins to propel itself with an opening of the possibilities of what it is you are seeking, so that you may begin to have greater clarity around what it is you're wanting to go forward. And so it is a balancing, like all things, for sometimes there is a period of stagnation and of stillness. And that's what's happening right now globally. And it hasn't been happening for very long. We're only talking about the last several days. There's a deep stagnation. It's like a calmness that's occurring before a new energy arises. And sometimes there can be uncomfortability in that. But in this, that is separate or different in a sense than the question being posed here or asked. And we are, as we're tuning into the vibrational frequency of the one asking it, what would be of support for you right now is to be of service, and to not think about it, and to do something that you don't normally do, although we recognize that you are a giver and do lots for others. But right now, we're wanting you to do something that is a bit out of your comfort zone or unusual, a new task of giving to those perhaps that are, in a sense, maybe perceived or labeled as less fortunate, so that you can get the energy and momentum moving.
Fantastic. So, Raphael, a lot of people, when they find themselves in this stillness, they go inside and they meditate and they ask questions and they hear different voices and things like this, but they have a hard time discerning what is their ego versus what is their spirit. How can we all better discern the difference?
Well, it is the ego that is questioning spirit. And so it is that in the that everything is spirit in a sense, right? It is all a part of yourself, and then you're discerning. You see, you're still operating in a sense from the paradigm that the guides, or the angels or myself or all these energies are outside of you, perhaps floating about in the sky with wings, and that you have to somehow connect to them, then they're going to talk to you, and you're going to decipher their knowing in messages. But ultimately, everything that you're hearing on every level is an aspect of who it is you are, even that which you label an angel, because from our perspective and the angelic realm, I am you. And I am you on every level, because it is that we are all originating from that very same source energy of love. Now, there are different octaves of vibrations that you may be hearing that are vibrating at either a lower or denser quality, in which their information perhaps is not necessarily aligned with a vibration that is supporting your well-being or growth, where the ego, it could be in the way, and that is sometimes tricking you into being distracted from your inner knowing. But it is that all of the voices and all of the information is actually you. So deciphering not so much who is it, but what calibration, what vibration is it operating from, and you can discern that or decipher that depending upon the quality of the information and whether it is exhibiting or expressing or in alignment with the highest vibration, which you all know is love. And so, if it is telling you something other than love, at the base quality of what it is, then it is also then forcing itself into the identification with form and separation rather than connection, unity, quality of unconditional loving vibration. And so it's not deciphering whether who it is you're talking to as much as what it is you're hearing and what vibration or octave that it is at. And that is what you're wanting to discern. And so it is in the willingness to be present without overthinking what it is that you're hearing and just absorbing it energetically or into the heart center rather than utilizing the mind to overanalyze it, to break it down, to decipher it, to decode it into judging it, then that is not operating at the frequency in which you would be, according to your idea, be aligned with the highest guide, which is another aspect or higher part of who it is that you are. So it is that sometimes when you think about angels, such as myself, and although I have never incarnated in physicality, and although my job is to be here to support all of you and to bring messages of love and unity and oneness and to remind you who you are and the impermanence of the human experience and that you are a divine being, it is that I actually am a piece of you that remained in a higher dimension, in a higher frequency, as a messenger to another aspect of yourself that isn't fully aware or awake or conscious yet of that higher part of who you are. And so the guides, or the angels, or the ascended masters, the goddesses, and the beings in which we bring in all the time and work with all of you to accelerate and to wake you up, is just hooking you up like in a link from where it is that you are here in this octave to a higher frequency. It's just closing that gap by bringing that information in, but it is not separate from self. So, in deciphering or discerning what it is that you are hearing, it is to place your hand on your heart and to tune in not to so much the words that are being spoken, but the vibration. And if the vibration of it is elevated at a higher frequency than that in which you're normally operating in, then that is a higher octave or higher aspect of self. And then you can be assured that that is information that is supportive of you. Any information that would be coming in that is fear based or telling you to be afraid of something or that you're going, what, all of those things, other than the deep intuitive negative aspect of danger, of course, that's coming from the guttural energy, that is an awareness that brings you into awareness of something to perhaps avoid or not walk toward or step away from. But other than that, anything that's telling you what to do, in a sense that's pushing you towards something, that's not feeling as though you're flowing toward it or opening your heart in alignment with love, is not necessarily a higher vibration.
Thank you, Raphael. And in this whole process, we have some other questions about people going through this transition with their ego of fully identifying with the mind rather than the heart. And so, what are some tools or habits that we can use to make the mind as a servant only rather than fully identifying with it?
It loves to live in the idea of linear time. For the ego cannot thrive unless it has something to attach itself to regarding the mind's operation around the past or the worrying about the future. And as we've said before, the greatest enemy to the ego is the presence of the now. And so the continuous willingness to step into awareness and into the presence of where you are in any moment is where the heart begins to become the driver again, and the mind begins to take a back seat and becomes a tool. And we know that this is easy from our perspective to continuously tell you this and reiterate it, but this is how you fully move into an awakened state, is the willingness to be completely and absolutely present within and every moment. And so it takes practice, just like learning to play the piano or to paint a painting or whatever you're doing. You have to continuously practice it regularly over and over and over. And so many of you might call it a walking meditation, or just an awareness and a presence as you become the observer of the thought. And in the practice of that, the thought then is just a stream of consciousness and you are fully aware of it. And when you become aware of the thought itself, then the ego has nothing to attach itself to. And you recognize that it is simply a tool to support you in guiding you in making choices or decisions or planning or whatever you are needing to do. But that is all it is, that it is not the guiding, driving system. And so, in order to do that, when you start to find yourself getting caught up in your ego and identifying with the self or the me, the I, all the time, that I, poor me, or I am a victim, or this always happens to me, or I am sick, or I am amazing, or I am great, or look at me, look what I've done, see what I've done, all of the things where the ego is boosting itself. Is because of a deep insecurity around a willingness to be present with who it is that you are and in a full acceptance of self. And so it's a complete distraction from self. But when you're fully present, you're not distracting from anything that has been or anything that will be. And it has nowhere left to dwell. So it means when you're cooking to really be present in the cooking, to really be cutting the carrots or making the soup, or washing your hands or cleaning the pans, and doing it with a complete presence of joy, or an attention to it, because it is the sometimes the most mundane thing of sweeping the floor or whatever it may be, is the most amazing opportunity for you to recognize in the third dimension the beauty of the presence of where it is that you are and the impermanence of it, that anything that which you're experiencing is so fleeting and impermanent. And so it is that as you continue to bring awareness that when you're driving, to really be driving, not to be have your mind ruminating about something. When you're eating, to really be eating your food, to be chewing it, to be tasting it, to be in gratitude. When you have your water, to be blessing it, to be holding it, to be emanating light toward it. To whatever you're doing, to fully engage in the presence and the awareness of that when you're having a conversation with another, to see if you can have enough awareness that you are fully engaged in the listening. You're really, really deeply present, consciously aware, and listening to them, and that's all. And it is that presence, that awareness, that you continuously choose, with your own free will, to choose to practice in every aspect of whatever it is that you're doing, without the distraction of something else, that the ego begins to get put in check. Now the ego is necessary in the third dimension. It is not that you are to become egoless completely, because it also is a protective mechanism. You need to have certain boundaries. You need to have, it can propel you toward action and toward completion sometimes. But when the ego becomes the driving force of your experience, then it begins to control who it is that you are. And that is also something that deeply gets in the way, like a big block or boulder, from being able to tune into higher frequencies and higher energies and communicate with what you label or call the angelic realm, which is a higher aspect of self, because you cannot tune into it through the mind, only through the heart. And if the mind is overactive, you'll never find it. Because the mind can never decipher, can never decode, can never understand, can never know what the higher part of self is, because it's not something that can be decoded in a language. It is an imprint, it is an energy, it is an intuitive knowing. That's why many of you call it what you call downloads, because you're not absorbing it in linear thinking. You're not absorbing our information that we're sending to you and deciphering it in the way that you would in a normal conversation, because it's operating at a higher octave and it's holographic. And so when you download it, it's a hologram, it's a whole system of knowing. And you're like, ah, it's an imprint. It's an awareness. And awareness is something that expresses, that shows itself, and is available to you at any time in which you allow it to have its life. And in its life, the ego has nowhere to live. And so it is that we continuously reiterate the very same and basic teachings of the presence of the now, and how imperative it is for the collective healing of the globe, of the planet, because in the presence of the now, you start to have a new way of perceiving and seeing the world, hearing the world, feeling the world, knowing the world, because you're doing it without a judgment, and you're doing it without an agenda, and you're doing it without bringing forward what was and what will be, and you're just an observing witness of it. And with that, you will make choices in those now moments that are more in alignment, with the vibration of love. And when you make choices that are in alignment with the vibration of love, and you collectively all begin to do this, then you start to tune in to the cycles of your breath, the cycles of your body, the cycles of the heartbeat, the cycles of the moon and the waves, and the seasons and the trees and the grass. Because if you go and you sit outside and you're in nature and you're present, you're really present for a period of time where the mind is still, and it's not bringing forth all of those thoughts, and you're really actually there with the grass, you start to feel it, and you start to realize that it has energy, that it has its own awareness, that it's connected to you, that perhaps it has something to say. And then maybe you take your shoes off and you get your feet in it, and then you start to have a connection with the earth, and then the earth starts to feel your body and what's toxic in it, and it starts to have a relationship, and then it might start to grow something that you need to eat. And then as you're sitting out there, you have an awareness, ah, you see that dandelion there? It was actually grown for me and I need it and it's going to help me. or I'm aware of the vibrations of the earth because I'm present enough. Oh, I can feel, just like the animal kingdom maybe could feel a tsunami coming, right? They can feel it, not because they're more intelligent than you, but their innate knowing is on alert because they're not thinking about what their brother or sister or friend or husband or wife said to them yesterday, or how they're going to pay their mortgage tomorrow. They're present where they are. And so as you continue to practice this, the things that you're worried about that happened in the past and the things that you're worrying about that may or may not happen in the future, all are flowing because you, in the awareness of what's happening, you are doing and connecting and guiding in the way in which you are needing to. So those obstacles that you're worried about that may be in the way start to collapse. The roadblocks aren't there anymore, and you become in the flow of life, what you call the synchronicity of everything just begins to fall into place, because then you are in the vibration of trusting and knowing and awareness. And with that, yes, you will go along the human experience. And yes, something may come in into your experience or into your reality as an opportunity to grow, but you'll be present with that. And the sooner you can be present with it, with a loving awareness and the witness of it, without resisting it or fighting it and being in it, the more you can enjoy it and go along with it as it shows itself to you, then it just keeps opening a door to something else and a door to something else and a door to something else. But it is the contracted energy of fear, of I'm afraid, or I can't do it, I'm not good enough, I'm guilty, I'm shameful, all of that I of the ego that closes and contracts you from the presence of the now. And then life becomes a struggle. Oh, everything is so hard. I can't get anywhere. This is so difficult. And then you begin to anchor it in more because you're complaining. And the more you complain, the bigger the ego gets, because you're fighting against something. They did this to me, or I can't believe they said that, or how dare they did that, or you pulled over in front of me, or my soup that you brought to the table was cold. Oh, complaining, complaining, complaining. And that begins to accentuate and expand the ego. And so there's a difference between complaining and observing a fact. A fact may be something that you witness and you say, my package was delivered late. That's a fact. That's different than I can't believe they did that. I can't believe it was late. And now this is going to happen and that is going to happen. Then we get into victim mode. And so all of this is deeply interrelated. But if you just take it all apart and we can unravel all different aspects of it, but you come back to the original point of reference. It is the willingness to be present right now, in every moment, with a loving awareness as a consciousness that is witnessing the rest that is unfolding. And from that perspective, once you have, what would be your word, mastered that, you truly are then operating from a place where your original question of how do you talk to the angels, meaning the higher aspects of all of who you are, of course you're doing that, because there's nothing that's in the way. There's nothing that is blocking between where it is that you are in this vibration and the higher vibrations, which is a part of who you are.
Thank you, Raphael. And I think a big part of what you're talking about is that we always are trying to distract ourselves from self. And a lot of the questions that we got today um, revolved around guilt, like guilt of moving on from a relationship that somebody's in with and they feel guilty for, how they're going to make this person feel, and they're unwilling to leave. Or how can we let go of guilt if we've hurt someone and made them worry about us, and how can we be worthy of love? These are some questions that were going on. So what would you have to say about um, kind of transcending guilt, some tools for that.
Well, guilt is also deeply entrenched in the ego because it's based on an event that occurred in the past in which one perhaps did not feel that they were putting their best foot forward, and now they're punishing themselves for it. And it's often about something that they were hiding. And so, until there is a willingness to be authentic into speaking truth about whatever the guilt is, it will continue to haunt them. And so, what is that saying that someone in your culture says, truth will set you free? And there is a lot of truth to that. And so it is in speaking truth through the throat chakra and opening that in the honesty of it that the freedom comes. And so remaining in a relationship, perhaps that was the question, because you're feeling guilty about leaving, is not in any way supportive to the one in which you are maintaining the relationship with. If there is true love for the person you're with, you'll be completely and authentically honest around whatever it is you're guilty about, number one, and number two, how it is that you're feeling, so that there can be healing. And then from that place, a choice can be made as whether to stay or to go, because you're desiring or wanting to be in a relationship with another or not. But remaining in a relationship purely out of guilt only holds you in a pattern that will eventually create disease in the body, and it will create havoc and all types of scenarios and depression and anxiety and so on. For you must follow your own internal compass by speaking and doing your truth, being authentic to who you are. And so guilt is just about a story that you are allowing to continue to have its life, that occurred not in the presence of the now where you are, but in some future, distant or recent. And so to collapse that story is to come clean with it, and to bring forgiveness to yourself. Often, when one is feeling guilty, there is this feeling that they have to be forgiven by another. Well, that perhaps is a part of it, but that actually isn't what is needed here. What is needed is a willingness for them to forgive themselves, which ultimately means a willingness to love yourself and to accept yourself and to speak your honoring, knowing, and truth, whatever that may be. And once you do that, it's like a flicker of a switch. Then all of a sudden, it collapse. The energetic pattern. It's all fractal patterns. You see, everything around you is just a fractal pattern reflecting back around something that was said or done. And sometimes it's deeply connected and intertwined and tangled up in and corded and toxic and all of those things with another. That's why sometimes you call it that you're entangled with someone, or that you're tied up with them, or you can't cut the cord, or can't get loose from that person, whatever it is, because energetically it's all like enabling, right? Those are twisted cords that are connected energetically to one another. And in order to free them is a willingness to love self, and an awareness of the aspect of the part that needs to be seen, heard, and healed. And so again, if you're present and you continue to practice the presence of the moment of the now as it continues to unfold throughout time, then it is that that energy has nowhere to live, because it can only live in the mind that's telling a story about something that happened before the moment in which you're in now, which is actually irrelevant. And so again, it continues to come back to the now.
Absolutely, Raphael. And so what would you say to people who may have hurt someone and are struggling to forgive themselves, and also to the person who may have been hurt really badly who is struggling to forgive somebody else?
Well, they each have their part to play, right? And we talked about this recently in your work that you're doing about the perpetrator and the victim. There is the one that did the act that feels guilty about it, and then there's the one that received whatever happened to them and is the victim of it. And it is always that the perpetrator or the one that did the something that perhaps as they're feeling guilty about is labeled as the bad one. And yes, they have done something perhaps out of integrity or out of alignment, but it is that there had to have been a match, and the one that was receiving it that was labeled the victim, and they are playing that game together. They are in a dance. And so they may continue to play that dance, or that dance might end, and if they don't heal it, they'll get in another relationship and they'll reenact the same dance with someone else. That's why sometimes someone who is a victim keeps getting in more relationships where they continue to be abused, because they're carrying that vibration that is attracting the one that is the abuser. Now there's no blame, there's no guilt, there's not saying that they've done something wrong, but on a vibrational level, and if you look at it just from a holographic perspective, it's just the energetic chords or patterns that are matching up. They're just matching up together. And so for them to collapse, so you can create a new pattern to match up, that forgiveness and that willingness to love self must happen, because it ultimately comes down from a sense of worthiness. The deep-seated sense of unworthiness is not only in the victim but also in the perpetrator, because they're feeling such a great insecurity that they have to act out something in order to feel bigger, to boost themselves, for the ego to be strong so that they feel important. So again, it's collapsing the ego, and the greatest enemy to the ego is the now. It cannot live in the now. So really, any question that you ask on an emotional level will continue to come back to the practice of conscious awareness. You're always talking about, well, when are we going to wake up? When is consciousness going to wake up so that we can evolve to a higher vibration, so that we're not polluting the waters and killing the animals and war with each other and people in poverty and no sense of sanity on the planet. The waking up is becoming awake, meaning your consciousness is awake, and an awakened consciousness is a consciousness that is aware, and an aware of the mind, aware of the thought. And how do you have awareness of whatever's occurring? Only in the presence. And so if everyone on the planet unplugged from all their distractions for one moment in time together simultaneously, and they came into the presence of the now, and they expanded the vibration of love in their heart, and they began to move back from the mind with a conscious awareness of seeing everything as emanating love from the highest source of what it is. All those fractal patterns would have nothing to match with, and they would collapse, they would dissolve, and there would be an enormous quantum leap in the consciousness, meaning you would begin to create a unified field, a web of love that would emanate around the earth. And that love and that emanation, those rays of light, would then begin to infiltrate and move into the oceans, and it would begin to clear away all of the pollution. And that light would begin to move into the earth and the water and the flowers and the plants and the rainforest. And it would begin to grow and shift, and there would be a lifting of these denser vibrations. You would be birthing a new earth, which was the original state of Mother Gaia. She would begin to blossom. And so when your great teachers or Sikhs teach you about having awareness and consciousness and meditating, and you're like, if I hear about meditating one more time, I'll go crazy, because you think, well, okay, enough about meditating. But meditating is when the mind becomes still, then you start to have an awareness. You begin to connect to those higher octaves, those higher understandings, those higher teachings, those higher vibrations, that imprint of knowing. And then when you begin to move in the world, you act and behave in a very different way, with compassion, with connection, with a sense of remembering that everything is connected. And so then your free will choices begin to change and the earth shifts. So ultimately, it is the alignment of the presence of the now within you as a collective is what will bring about the healing that is needed on your planet.
Thank you, Raphael. And so that sounds like it would solve a lot of what the next grouping of questions is asking about, which so many people are worried about, let's say, GMOs and the health effects of that and the long-term or short-term effects. People are interested in health and medicine and science and what's gonna happen with religion and politics, and they're so concerned with all of these things, like maybe drinking coffee might kill our intuition. What do we need? Do we need to be worried about these things? Do we need to focus our energy on these things? And how can we settle our minds that get so fixated on the truth about each one of these topics of religion, politics, health, science, food?
Well, it's a distraction to put your energy all over there. Because you see, if you actually were present, let's just take the GMO, you're asking about that. If the farmers were fully present in their awareness, and they weren't thinking or worrying about making money in the future, or worried about a remembering of the past, and they were fully in awareness and present with the land, and they were connecting to the land in the presence awareness of their consciousness, they would recognize that manipulating it for their own sense of profit is completely out of alignment with who they are and its relationship to Mother Earth and to the consumption of the food. They would just know that it would be an intuitive, deep knowing that they would not push or fight against, and an awareness if they were spending time outside with Mother Earth in the soil where their mind wasn't active about other things, but they were really present. They would be communicating with the seed, they'd be communicating with the soil and the water and the crops, and they would know that human engineering and manipulating and changing it would begin to affect the whole ecological system and the physicality and the organs and the tissues of the body consuming something foreign. And so it would be the same with religion. In their conscious awareness in the presence of the now, where the ego in the religion is completely amplified, because religion is often based in hierarchy, where it says that the teacher, whoever that may be, right, is a monk, or it is a priest, or whatever it is, and is closer to God and knows more than another, and will tell you what you have to do, and that you must do it this way. And if you do not do it that way, that is being told that you have to do it, then you are less than, and you should feel guilty and shameful. So the ego is really out of control in most religions. Now, at the core of the religion is a nugget. The core essence of the religion is love. And love does not blame, love does not guilt on others, love does not should on them, love does not say my way is the only way, love does not judge and say if you are this way or that way, you are bad and God will not love you. That's also ridiculous. If you have a different sexual orientation, you will not be loved by God. Come on, right? So what is that? That's a judgment based in hierarchy of greater or less than, that it is the ego fully expressing itself. But in the presence of the awareness of spirit, you would see that the unity and the light emanating from the eyes of your fellow brothers and sisters. You would look to them and you would not judge them. You would see beyond the ego, beyond the personality, beyond even their actions, and you would see the core light that emanates from within. And you would say to them, I love you, no matter what you do or how you are or how you act. You are unconditionally, completely loved by the divine, which then in turn creates a knowing and a worthiness within them, in which they are very unlikely then to act out in ways that are now perceived as negative. And so you can say the same about anything, religion, right? You're talking about that, or politics. Politics are often two opinions that are opposed. Then one is right and one is wrong, and the other thinks one is right and one is wrong, until you can even begin to create a war. But you're just warring against the ego. Where is the truth based in? Where do you find the nugget of what is true? In the presence of the now, in an awareness of a willingness to allow the ego to step aside. And when it step aside, then we can find the truth. Universal law and truth is actually quite easy to discern and decipher. It means if you're removing judgment. But politics is all based on opinion and judgment. But where is the nugget of the essence of the truth? In that all human beings are equal. All human beings should have access to food and to clean water. Every single human being should have clean water on your planet. And so, from the higher perspective of the angelic realm, it saddens us that you have gotten so mixed up that you have forgotten to take care of each other. And so it is the presence and the awareness of responsibility that you must bear of your thoughts, your choices, your actions, and your judgments toward another, in that whatever you do to yourself, you do to another, for you are not separate from the child who does not have food or water somewhere right now on the globe, who sits in squalor in a trash bin. You are not separate. And until every one of you remembers that and begins to give back what you have and begins to be grateful for all of your blessings, in which the ego comes into check, that it is not all about you, me, because you are everyone. You are the child sitting in the squalor. You are the old sick man alone in the nursing home. You are the handicapped one who can't get out of their home. You are the little girl or child with cancer. And so it is the remembering that in the presence of the now, that you will not need to continue to reincarnate as in such difficult, dire situations, to be the courageous ones, to show the reflection of the lesson that needs to be seen by all. You're all choosing to reflect certain experiences, to be a mirror to the rest of you, to wake up. And the cycle will begin to collapse in a willingness to remember that you are love.
Thank you, Raphael. So, as long as we all remain present in the moment and choose love in every moment, we are doing the work that we need to do to help end this suffering. And whatever comes into our reality is then what we should bring love to, right?
Yes, thank you.
And just the last question is, because sometimes, you hear about all these things and all this stuff, and people want to go out of their way and overspend themselves to, spend all of their money and go here and try and help that child in the squalor, and other parts of their life fall apart. How do we know where the line is of how much we can give love and how much we can't?
You must give it to yourself first, because you are the child. And that's the hard part that you have to grasp. And so when you are complete and full, and on your journey as you are full, you can give, of course. But when you give to the point that you are no longer able to sustain the light within yourself, it is too much.
So it's a nuance of that balance of being present, being truthful to yourself, and acting with love to all.
Yes, and not getting so caught in the material. It is very alluring. It is very, mm, it is part of the earthly experience to enjoy the material, and there is nothing wrong with it. But when it becomes an obsession and it is the drive behind your human experience, then it becomes out of balance. And it is out of balance in many of the countries around the globe, creating destruction. And so keeping that in check is also of great importance.
Yes. Thank you,
All,
Raphael.
all right. And so with that, I send to you all of my love and all of my light. And perhaps today was a bit repetitive or heavy, but the lessons can be clothed in different garments, but ultimately it is always the same thing: love. And if you need to just keep saying love over and over and applying love to everything, to yourself, to others, and to every living thing or situation, that alone will create leaps and bounds in your awareness. Many blessings and good day.
Good day.
All right. Well, that was a bit heavy today. um, well, thank you guys so much for joining. And for anybody new, we do this every Sunday. It's free at 2:00. Um, guess that's all I got to say about that. I love you. I'm going to try to emanate love today and be in the moment, and let you know how it goes. So hang in there. Much love, everybody. And I shall see you next Sunday. And for my star seeds, I'll see you tomorrow night at 6. And for anybody who would like to join the Awaken the High Priestess Within, you can do that. And thanks for the donations. If you feel like donating, great. If not, no big deal. All right. Take care, everybody. Good night.